if you're struggling to speak up in class right now, you may see some of the posts that I've said, and I've said, here's a workbook that I wrote, and there's 32 classes and lessons you can work through on your own. That sounds like fun, doesn't it? Saying, no, Joanne, it doesn't sound like fun. It sounds awful. I cannot imagine anything worse than adding to my workload right now. So what I wanted to do was go through what the Speaking Made Simple workbook is and who it's for and who it's not for. So who it's not for is somebody who can speak, is happy to speak, just wants some ideas and quick tips and some course correction. I say it maybe this would feel irrelevant to you. Maybe you'd start to look at all these sections and say, well, that's obvious, and I'm good at all of those things. What I need is specifically help for this one particular situation. So if that's you, my best advice for you is what I've said in the freebie that I offer on the website. That's, don't look for help saying speaking or speaking in the classroom. And public speaking advice is useful, but what you really want to be looking for is participation. Just type in participating in class, and if your view of the world is that that's fairly simple and clear cut, I wouldn't look at all of those other things. As say, participating in class feels the same, whoever's class it is, whatever I'm talking about, but I just want that simple one answer. That's what I would do. I would not give the workbook. I would go for that. Who I was thinking of was the people that I do tend to work with, who tend to like the nuance and the differences and feel that context matters, and that this classroom feels different to this classroom feels different for that one. And what happens with that is you can get so much information in your mind that it's hard to calm it down and see, what do I have already? What am I good at already? And what areas are weaker? And that's what the workbook is about. The reason it has 32 blocks or 32 lessons is to spread it all out between language, thinking, professional and creative. And you say, oh, I do have that. Even if I'm hard on myself, I do have some of those things. And I am aware of some of these things. I'm tempted to say a but there is going to be a hard lesson for you in this. Part of the goal of when I was doing this 32, one is to do an audit. I need you to stop, take a breath and have a little bit of an audit of what your current skills are, because you're not at zero. You may feel like you're terrible and it's really bad, but you're not at zero. And once you calm down and see everything made visible in front of you, you can go, okay, I have some of that. I may not be world record holder in each of these classes, but I do have something of all of these different sections. What you're also going to realize is that whilst it doesn't start at zero, the individual skills don't stop at a certain point too. They're kind of infinite. And what I found some people who find my work experience is that the strategy they had when they were at school of, I will cover everything, I will work really hard, I will do all of these things, doesn't work when they go to university. And I think what you're going to find, if you're one of those people when you read this book, is that realization can hit you. I think it's amazing. That's kind of the goal. What I'm really pushing towards is for you to do an audit check and say, okay, I have these skills, I have these, not. But some of these areas you're going to go, I'm not interested in doing that. I'm not interested in learning. Not yet, not now. Maybe you're not interested, or maybe there's just no time or opportunity or money or different things like that. But you will get a feeling in your body of, I don't want to do that. Not because I'm scared or not because I think it's a rubbish skill to have, but I just have zero energy and motivation to be learning about that at the moment. For example, for me, persuasion skills. I know that it might be useful, or it will be. Let's say it would absolutely categorically be 100% useful if I learned about sales techniques or persuasion or different things like that. And I've watched a few videos, but there are other things I'm more interested in. I really like learning about storytelling. I like learning about frameworks and the mind. I like, there's so many other things that I enjoy doing that for the time being, I'm not doing that. And that is the big lesson. You're going to do an audit and some things are going to jump out at you as in, I'm not going to be doing that. And that lesson and the reality that when you say yes to things, particularly in a university and the adult life, when you say yes to things, you are saying no to something else. You are deciding, I'm going to focus my attention this way and not do other things. But that is what building a life is. As you've gone through school, you've dropped certain subjects, and then you think when you go to university, you've made your choices. But what happens is you start to realize all this depth of the subject that you're studying, and you realize, oh, I'm still making choices. I'm still having to say yes to this, which means saying no to that thing over there. How does that rate? How does this relate to speaking up in the classroom? I thought that if I had all the speaking skills, that if I was good enough and that I would be understood all the time and that I'd be able to speak in these different situations, whoever I was talking about, whoever I was talking to, whatever I was talking about, these little errors that I have when I'm speaking, they would never happen because I'd be amazing and I'd be perfect. Say perfect. I'd have ticked all the boxes. It wasn't that I thought that I would be perfect. I just thought once I've learnt all of those things, it would be boxes ticked and I would feel safe and happy and others would understand me and I'd be able to speak in that situation and it'd all be good. And when I realised that there will always be gaps, that there are things that I've consciously and deliberately said no to because I'm developing my life in this other direction. What that meant was I needed a backup plan for those situations because my immediate response in those situations was not necessarily positive or attractive. Sometimes I get all defensive or sometimes I might cry or feel emotional. So I did need a backup plan. That's another story. But that's a breakthrough to realize that my old plan of learning everything and doing everything was not going to work and I was going to have to choose. So some of you will say, oh, she's overcomplicating this. I just need participation tips for in the classroom. I'm struggling a little bit. That's it. Some of you may resonate with this and realize that all these different situations feel different and what you'd really like to do is just avoid those gaps at all. And part of that sensation of feeling a little bit overwhelmed by 32 different blocks that you can consider, kind of frying your brain a little bit, that's the good thing. It's a prompt that you can say, do I want to do that? And then you check in with your body and you say, oh, no, I don't want to do that. And then you follow your curiosity. And that is how you develop and build your life. Yes, we'll talk about backup plans. I may do a video straight away about that because it's now forefront of my mind that you need a backup plan. But if you're curious about the Speaking Made Simple, this is the version that's available on Amazon. It's like a, whatever book. You can also get it as PDF, but you'll see I do still put cartoons in. I leave tons of space to write, and you may feel that you don't need to do all of these different exercises. The goal is slow down, lay it out in front of you, do a little bit of an audit check of what skills do I have already, just taking a breath, and then let it jump out at you that there are still going to be gaps. You're not going to spend your whole life reading dictionaries, or maybe you are. Or you're not going to spend your whole life doing grammar. Or you're not going to spend your whole life thinking about different frameworks of thinking and metacognition, unless that's what you are. You could, on each of these blocks, and even smaller than that, you could spend your whole life doing one of those areas. Does that make sense? So I hope that's helpful for making the choice about if you're struggling with speaking up in class. What is the right decision? Do I need the simple answer right now? If you're not sure, go for simple. I don't want to overwhelm you. Go for simple. And then when you get that answer, if you find you're not speaking the next day in class, then maybe you need to just calm things down, see an overview, and see where those gaps are and see what we can do next. Oh, there's loads of suggestions. I'm not just pointing out gaps. I am suggesting ways to fill in the gaps. So there you go. Bye.